Good morning, guys. Today I'm going to be talking about the benefits of seed oils for muscle growth. Now, this is probably not something you heard before. I think mostly we only ever hear about bad things about seed oils, but I think in some aspects they're actually more important than protein for muscle growth. And I'm going to explain why today. I want to clarify before we start that I'm talking specifically about the essential fatty acids contained in seed oils. Now, seed oils are basically just purified essential fatty acids in a sense. They contain mostly omega-6 and omega-3 fatty acids. And fatty acids are as essential as vitamins. Like, you need your linoleic acid and your alpha-linoleic acid just as much as you need your vitamin A, your vitamin D, and your B vitamins. They are very demonized for being heavily processed, which is true, but to some extent all supplements are also very heavily processed. So your whey protein is just as heavily processed as your seed oils. So while they are honestly demonized in the media and demonized in online health circles, they are no more processed than, say, a whey protein powder. And the reason seed oils are worse than a whey protein powder is they can cause inflammation. They link directly to the body's process of inflammation. And this is part of the reason why they are actually good for muscle growth. So I want to explain all of that. Now, omega-6 fatty acids are the one we're talking about today, primarily. There's also omega-3s, which are useful for many things, but omega-3s are generally more well appreciated, I think, in online circles. So omega-3s are like fish oils and flaxseed oil, and they're very good for things like anti-inflammation and cognition, and they have a number of benefits. And I personally have previously taken a lot of omega-3 supplements. I take a lot of fish oil and a lot of flaxseed oil as well. But omega-6s are not really so appreciated. And omega-6s, I'm talking about primarily linoleic acid, but there's a chain of different omega-6 fatty acids which all get created from linoleic acid. So you get linoleic acid and gamma-linoleic acid, and then I always forget the third one. I think it's dihomolinoleic acid or something. And then the fourth one is arachidonic acid. And arachidonic acid is fairly special because it is the body's emergency response kit to injuries. So when you get an injury from whatever, a car accident, or you just get a cut on your skin or anything, that causes reactive oxygen species to be released. And the action of these reactive oxygen species is they primarily activate arachidonic acid by oxidizing it. And when arachidonic acid gets oxidized, it forms the emergency response molecules to the body's injuries, primarily eicosanoids and prostaglandins. Now, prostaglandins basically control the whole of the body's response to injury. So they initiate the initial inflammation and then the wound healing to close up your cut or fix whatever your problem is. Now, basically muscle training is, as far as the body is concerned, another injury. When you contract your muscle heavily and cause micro tears, that has the same effect. So you cause release of these reactive oxygen species, and they oxidize arachidonic acid, which produces all these prostaglandins. And the prostaglandins have the effect of causing inflammation and then initiating the repair process. So if you apply this to muscle training, you might think that you work out and you get sore, which is the inflammation, so that tells you that the prostaglandins are being produced correctly, and then you repair your muscle. And over repeating this over many, many years, eventually you get some hypertrophy, hopefully. Now, seed oils are not liked because they support this inflammatory process. So often you will take a tablespoon of some seed oil and boost your linoleic acid amount in your body, which boosts the arachidonic acid, which then starts getting oxidized by all your injuries and causing the prostaglandin molecules to get produced and then causing more inflammation. And generally we don't like this. We say, oh, they're inflammatory, you shouldn't take those. You should take the anti-inflammatory omega-3 oils. But really, inflammation is not something to be scared of. Like, if you do have an injury, you want the inflammation because it shows you your prostaglandins are being produced correctly, and then your repair process is also working correctly. That is all necessary to repair whatever is broken. And it's the same with muscle growth. Like, if you do a workout and you don't get sore, it shows that you are not making the prostaglandin molecules effectively. So in addition to not getting inflammation, you will also not be getting your repair process working very well. Now, is that sufficient to grow muscle over a long period of time? Obviously, it's not sufficient. You need your protein. You need everything else that goes into building up the muscle. In fact, just prostaglandins I've been talking about as like a single molecule, but there's a huge number of different types, and to make all the different prostaglandins requires a lot of other nutrients as well. So your zincs and your irons and your silicas and stuff are also going into producing these prostaglandins and the inflammatory response. So you can't just take a linoleic acid seed oil and then expect to get amazing muscle growth. You need a whole holistic approach, but they are, in some aspects, the most necessary molecule to kick off the muscle hypertrophic approach because they start the whole chain. If you run out of arachidonic acid, then you won't be generating the body's repair process to actually stimulate the hypertrophic response. So in that aspect, I believe that seed oils and omega-6 fatty acids are actually more important than whey protein supplement. And how do you know if they're important to you? I mean, I think some of you will be guessing from this video so far, but if you do your workout and you fail to get a soreness response after that, and you wake up the next day and you don't really feel very much, then you probably have run out of arachidonic acid, or at least one of the other molecules which is needed to make the prostaglandins. And a lot of people say that, okay, if you feel too sore from a squat or a deadlift, then you just work out more often. If you just do the squat like 4 days a week, then you stop being sore from it. And yeah, that's true. But that basically just means you've run out of arachidonic acid. So you're unable to generate, your body doesn't have the resources to generate the inflammatory response and stimulate the repair mechanism as it used to. So that's not a good symptom. That is a sign that you're nutritionally deficient. And in the same way, like newbie gains, when you go into the gym the first time and you do a deadlift or something, you just feel terrible the next day. You can barely move. And the reason for that is your body's omega-6 fatty acid and nutrient store is totally full up. You just have sufficient, you have loads of whatever you need. So your body has ample resources to generate the inflammatory response and generate the wound healing response. Now, I've actually had experiences of this in the last month or so. I decided to increase my omega-6 dose for basically a reason unrelated to muscle injury. I was just experimenting, as I tend to do. But I realized I was taking a lot of omega-3s from things like fish oil and flaxseed oil, which is also good for a number of things. But I was taking a load of omega-3s, but not really very many omega-6s. I was taking a bit. I've always taken some rice oil as a supplement for my fats. But I was just taking way more of the omega-3s. And I just thought my balance might be off. Like, you don't really see much in the literature about the appropriate balance between omega-3s and omega-6s. We hear that our ancestors took a lot more omega-3s and we're now slanted into omega-6s. And I think that might be true for people just eating standard American diet. If you're just eating junk food all day, they are full of these omega-6 fatty acids, the corn oil and all the crappy ones. So those people probably could do more with supplementing omega-3s. But if you're eating relatively healthily, as I was, you might be supplementing your fish oil, and you might be eating just like your rice and your chicken breast and your broccoli and your vegetables and things, and they don't really contain very much omega-6s. So for me, I tried balancing my omega-6 and my omega-3 dose. So I'm taking about now 1-to-1 in terms of omega-6s and omega-3s. Mostly linoleic acid, and alpha-linoleic acid is the omega-3 version. So yeah, anyway, I increased my ratio from 1-to-1, and I immediately got a massive increase in soreness and inflammation after my training. So I now, for the last month or so, after I go and squat, my legs are just dead weights again for a few days. It feels like the first few weeks when I initially started training, like 5 or so years ago. I know it doesn't look like I have a 5-year body. I'm a bit lazy, forgive me. But yeah, I'm finding massive benefits with regard to this. And it's not just the soreness after training as well. I feel like it really helps your mind-muscle connection in the gym. Because as you do your shoulder press or whatever, you can feel the inflammation starting to come up almost in real time. And it really helps you connect to the muscle which is actually working out. Now, I don't think seed oils, well, okay, let's start with this. You don't have to take seed oils. There are obviously omega-6 fatty acids in nature, in natural things. I mean, they are called seed oils because they are the purified form of the oil in seeds, I think, obviously. So in all sorts of seeds and nuts and things, they contain a lot of omega-6 fatty acids. So if you really don't want to take the seed oils, you can probably just take like 100 grams of nuts every day and that will probably cover for you. But yeah, especially if you're someone who trains every day or trains very frequently and you feel like you're basically just exhausted every day but you don't really get a lot of muscle soreness anymore, and maybe your gains have stagnated and you're not really sure how to progress, then very much arachidonic acid and omega-6 deficiencies is very, very plausible, I think. And they're very cheap. You can just go down the supermarket and buy any seed oil and they're all in the junk aisle that not many people visit, but I visit quite a lot. And you can just buy them very cheaply and just try a tablespoon. And if you needed it, you will feel the effect almost immediately. And for me, it took actually about 2 or 3 days of increasing my supplement of the omega-6 fatty acids before I actually felt the increased soreness. So you might have to build it up a bit, but it doesn't really take a lot of time. Now, what seed oil do I take? I mentioned it before. I take rice oil, which in my eyes is the best of a bad bunch. They're all processed crap. But I like rice oil because it has a nice balance of different fatty acids. So it has linoleic acid, which is the main one we're talking about today. And it also has palmitic acid, which also goes on to support, it's a saturated fat, so it's a bit different, but it supports inflammation and supports prostaglandin production in different ways. And the last one it has is oleic acid, which is monosaturated fatty acid, which is in olive oil. I'm not entirely sure why that's healthy, but it's touted as a healthy one. But yeah, just give it a go if you like. I do think supplementing of omega-6s is one thing which is really, really lacking in most like bodybuilders and weight trainers' field of view. And I think it could, for some people, produce a really, really big improvement in your training. Alright, then that's all for today. If you enjoyed the video, then please subscribe and obviously like. And I will talk to you guys later. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.